Hi. I just wanted to talk about a couple of things. I've never really made a video about any kind of like spiritual encounters. So basically, this is going to be what that's about. Since I was little, and I'm not trying to sound special or anything like that, since I was probably about 5 years old, maybe even younger, I've had experiences with what you would call the paranormal. When I was really little, me and my siblings, and this is how I recall it. I could be wrong, and I could be distorting memories, but when I was really little, I stayed with my grandma a lot, and that's the phone. And broad daylight, one day, me and my 3 siblings were hanging out in front of my grandma's house, and we were playing with this old rotary phone. I mean, obviously the thing was just a toy. Obviously it was obsolete. It had been disconnected. There was no cord, no nothing. It was just like grabbing just an old phone and playing with it. So we're playing around with it, and I remember it was a beige color. Yeah, it was a beige color. And it rang. It rang several times. And I remember looking around at my siblings like, what's going on? Why is it ringing? It's not plugged in. You know, when they all start looking at me and they start laughing, I think they could have been playing a trick on me, but I remember thinking in my mind, they're in a state of shock or in a state of disbelief the same as me because it's ringing and it's not plugged in. So they, from what I recall, they all dare me to answer it, like, because I'm the one holding it. And so I'm just kind of like, you guys are jerks. And because I'm the youngest one, I'm the youngest of all of my immediate siblings. And anyway, so I answer it, and it sounds like Dr. Mad from Inspector Gadget, you know, that low grumbling voice, and it says, "I want to eat you, I'm going to eat you," or something like that. And I was just kind of like, what the fuck? And it laughs, you know, and I remember at the same time looking at my siblings in a state of horror, and they're all laughing at me. So this memory could have been them playing a trick on me, but I'm just blocking certain parts out. But I just thought it was really weird that a phone that was unplugged rang out of nowhere. I mean, this was, what, 87? Somewhere around there. They weren't going to go around carrying a little, from what I recall, they're not going to go around carrying a little handheld recorder that has a phone ringing, you know, as a recording. I mean, we really didn't think ahead to do things like that. So anyway, I remember that happening. There was an instance where I was roughly about the same age, and I remember exactly what I was wearing. I was wearing a red polka dotted dress with a little white bib here, and it had little red, blue, and yellow dots, or a rainbow or something right here on the bib part. And I was wearing, it was like Sunday clothes kind of, or outing clothes, and I was wearing like white medias, which are white hose with little Mary Jane shoes. And I didn't know how to swim. I didn't know how to swim till I was 10, so I must have been about 5 or 6, at the very most maybe 7. And we were at a friend's lot that had piers that overlooked the Arroyo Colorado. It's a river, you know, here in South Texas. And I fell in the water. And nobody was around, of course, you know, because they were talking or something. And I remember going into the water, and I see this fish swimming towards me with glowing yellow eyes. You know, that's not so much paranormal as it was weird. Which was, paranormal is kind of weird. Anyway, and so it starts swimming towards me, has yellow glowing eyes underneath in the water. This is murky, nasty, brownish green water. So it's very, very difficult for you to see anything in that water. I mean, you might as well just stick your eyes in a cesspool, you know? So anyway, they pulled me out. I was fine. I was just a little distraught. There was another instance. I'm going to go off on a long list, so you better get comfortable. There's an instance where I was probably maybe about preteen, maybe 12, 11. My parents used to go running at this track nightly. It was a stadium. It was a football stadium. They had a running track open to the public for exercise. So we would go walking, and as you're walking, since it's a stadium, it's like an outdoor stadium, so they had bleachers. And the bleachers were the aluminum kind, so you could see, spaces in between the bleachers. You could see the road behind them, because, like I said, it was outdoors. And we're walking the track, having fun, chasing each other and stuff like that, me and my sister. And I remember both of us looking over at the bleachers and looking in between the bleachers, and we see glowing eyes. Thinking, well, that's got to be an animal or something, But we get closer, and this thing is about our height. And behind the bleachers, there's no steps or anything like that for anything to have been elevated behind the bleachers. So this thing must have been about 5 feet tall. And it was glowing. I saw glowing, I think it was red eyes. She saw glowing yellow eyes. And they blinked. When they were looking at us, they blinked. And I remember us thinking, like, what the fuck, Granted, in South Texas, we're on a land with a lot of bloodshed, So there's a whole lot of history with South Texas. And I remember us being freaked out. Oh my God. And we ran away. And so right next to that track, we are in between two middle schools. 7th and 8th grade. 7th and 8th grade. At the time, they were two middle schools. So the one on your right-hand side is very, very, very old. It was an old high school. As old as maybe the 50s. We consider that old. 50s, 40s. Could be older, I don't know, but you can tell by the architecture how old it is. And of course, there's a lot of rumors that every school is haunted, right? There's always a rumor that the schools are haunted. Schools are haunted, blah, blah, blah. But this one actually did have some janitors died there, or during the construction, some people died there, or something like that. And there was this gym behind the school that was built out of solid wood. We used to call it the barn. And there was a rumor that some kid hung himself in there. So, you'd go in there, you'd hear the wood creaking and all that. Oh, it's the kid that hung himself, But we never actually saw anything. But we correlated our track experience with the possibility that, that this ground is tainted, So anyway, when I get into high school, there's going to be a whole lot of stories because, oh my God. But, you have to know that as a child, I lost my faith in the Catholic religion at a very young age. I was baptized. I never made it to confirmation. I just lost it. I didn't find the fulfillment in it once I reached teenagehood, which I guess is normal. I don't know. Anyway, and so you have to know that I was not religious and am not religious. There's a big difference between spiritual and religious. I don't follow a book necessarily. I educate myself with books, but I don't follow a doctrine. Okay? Anyway, so high school. Okay, here we go. Alright. So you look at me, you can already assume the kind of crowd that I hung out with. I have only smoked weed like a handful of times, alright? Maybe 20 times my entire life. And I'm 34, okay? I wasn't the type of person that was big on doing that sort of thing every weekend. I didn't start drinking till 2 years ago, and like I said, I'm 34. So I didn't do any drugs, really, if you want to call weed a drug. I didn't do any drugs in high school. I didn't drink, you know. There was a couple of times where I took a couple of roach pills, and the only reason I took those is because I wanted to know what it felt like to be drunk just without the nausea. Well, to my surprise, you know, they make you vomit. At least they made me vomit. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. My point is that I'm trying to say that I wasn't influenced by any chemicals for these things to be happening. They weren't a mental state. They were actual physical apparitions. Okay. I hung out with that crowd. There was nothing wrong with that. They're really cool people, and they still are. And, you know, so we're all open-minded, you know, and we like the idea, you know, of going to cemeteries, you know, we like the idea of going to haunted houses, you know, and we like the idea of the mystery, you know, the mystery of things, the unknown, the paranormal, you know, of course, you know, so we watch a lot of shows, we watch a lot of horror movies, and then my mom cannot go one day without watching a horror movie. I swear to God, when we were little kids, it was like she would practically force us to watch horror movies with her, and I remember hiding under her armpit, smelling her deodorant because I was hiding, because I didn't want to watch it. She was like, it's just a movie, it's just a movie. Look, a monster, it's a movie, it's a monster. And I was just kind of like, God, don't freaking scare me. Anyway, so I was raised with a very cool, very open-minded mom, right? So anyway, so I get into high school and it's kind of like, oh yeah, I've seen that movie. Oh yeah, I've seen that movie. I've seen that movie. I've seen that movie. And so, you know, we're hanging out, you know, we're doing all your typical teenage gothy stuff, and gothy metalhead / punk, I guess. I don't know. And we don't really experience anything too much. It wasn't until I had an experience with this one guy who shall remain nameless, who indicated that he gave me a gift, and he indicated that he instilled that gift with a spirit. I didn't know anything about this topic in particular. All I know is that... What's on the wall over there? Oh, it's the blinds. All I know is that I was raised Catholic and instilled with a lot of fear, okay? And he knew that. So anyway, he liked me. And I liked him for a short time period until he started showing his cuckoo tendencies, you know, at the time. So he said, oh yeah, I put this spirit in that gift that I gave you. And I was like, why the fuck would you do that? And he's basically indicating, from what I remember, it was kind of like a spy, you know? And this guy could have been well versed in, you know, demonology or spirit manipulation or servitors or whatever. I didn't know shit about it, you know? So I started noticing things were moving around the house. I started noticing dark shadows. I started noticing that I was having intense nightmares. So much so to where I couldn't distinguish if they had really happened or not. You know, that distinct and vivid. And I wasn't the only one. My mother was also experiencing things in the house. It got so bad to where me and her were both sleeping in the living room. You know? I remember having this one very vivid dream that I had this long mirror in my room, which was a big no-no now, looking back in retrospect. And I remember in this dream there was green eyes at the bottom corner of it looking at me. And I remember thinking that it was this green creature. And I remember telling him about it. I don't know why I went to him about this, but I told him about it. He's like, oh yeah, that's this and this. I can remove it for you. And I was like, alright, then fucking remove it. Shit. You know? And I don't know if he was faking it or what, but he had like this grin on his face. I can't believe I just did that. But he had this like, yeah, you're under my control now, kind of look on his face. And I was just thinking, alright, I don't want to have anything to do with you if you're just talking to me so that you can manipulate somebody, you know? And I remember him saying he removed it, and then I didn't hear anything from it. I was also waking up with scratches and bruises on me. And I covered my mirror from there. And I gave him back his stupid gift, And I remember him getting so pissed off at me that he got physical with me. I'm not going to get specific, but if he watches this, he knows exactly who he is. And he should know that I've never forgotten that. And I never will. I should have pressed charges, but I didn't. Anyway, because I'm not that kind of person. Anyway, and so he got physical with me. He let go of me. And I started dating somebody. He got pissed about it. But fortunately, he started dating somebody soon after that. So I was safe. But there were still things going on in the house, you know? So in between that time period, I started messing around. I looked up, like, how to cast spells and stuff like that. And I bought some candles. And I tried to do one, but I didn't have the intention. I was just like, let's see what happens, you know? And of course, nothing happened, you know? And there was just all kinds of stuff happening in the house, right? So as the year goes on, we're sleeping in the living room. You know, we figure that there's nothing... Oh, I cut my lip. We figure that there's nothing I can do about it, right? You know, my mom's a real big Catholic. She prays every night. She prays every night. Nothing happens, you know? So, we're like I said, we're sleeping in the room. We all sleep with night lights, right? Because she's scared of the dark, I'm scared of the dark, and based on what we've experienced, we kind of have every reason to be, because it would really only happen at night, or at least we would only notice it at night. Okay, so when I would fall asleep, I would hear people talking in my ear, you know, and sometimes at night I still do hear it. I'm not even afraid of that anymore because it happens so often. I'm just kind of like, leave me alone. I want to go to bed. You hear people talking, and sometimes they were talking to you, and sometimes it sounded like you were listening in on a conversation. Sometimes it sounded like there was a whole stadium of people in the room. You could hear them clapping and yelling and screaming. You know, it sounded like you were in the middle of a mall, you know? And I remember, it's kind of like when you're falling asleep and you feel like you're falling and you jump up awake. It was always during that time period, right when you're falling into sleep. What do they call it? Alpha state or something like that. So every night, so I got used to it, right? The talking didn't even bother me. It was the shadow figures. It was the mists. It was the glowing eyes. It was the growls. It was the scratches. It was the bruises. You know, that is what scared us, what was beginning to piss me off. So, towards the end of, I don't know, like my sophomore year, there's this really strange kid in class. You know, everybody used to make fun of him because he had a funny last name. And I didn't have anything against him. I would talk to him if he wanted to talk, but he was kind of antisocial, you know? So I was just kind of like, okay. I was the very talkative type, you know? Like, I hung out with everybody. You know, I didn't care what your little label was. You know, if you were cool with me, I was cool with you, and we hung out, you know? I remember him getting one of my spiral notebooks and him drawing something in it. And I didn't think anything of it, so I was like, oh, cool. And then he gave it back to me, and at the end of the year, for some reason, I like saving spirals, so I just put it under my mattress for later. Like, I would write on it later. And it almost seems as though when that happened, everything amplified, you know? So, after a while, after all of this stuff was happening, there was something in that spiral. I'll get to that in just a second. There was one instance where me and my mom were sleeping in the living room with the kitchen nightlight on. The kitchen was off in the distance. So that nightlight lit up everything in our direct vicinity. She sleeps on the long couch. I sleep on the love seat. The love seat, whatever. And I sleep with my cat. I had a gray tabby cat. I love that cat. His name is Junior. And he was probably about 10 years old at the time, maybe 12. And he slept with me every night. He would talk to me. He would be like, I could understand exactly what that cat wanted. And he knew how to open doors, and he knew how to open the refrigerator. Anyway, and so he sleeps with me every night. He's my baby. And he went through, I tortured him a lot. Anyway, So they say that cats can pick up spiritual activity, any animal really. And I hear something in the kitchen, and the kitchen is behind me. My back is facing the kitchen, you know? And I hear something, just kind of movement. And I look over, and I see this clouded, thick black mass start to form. And it starts getting bigger and bigger and bigger, kind of like the blob. And it starts to shadow over the light. It starts to cover the light. And it starts to get bigger and bigger and bigger. And it starts moving towards us. And it's just like in every horror movie where there's light and it starts to cover the light as it's coming towards you. That's exactly what was happening. It was probably about 1 or 2 in the morning. And as it's doing so, my cat scratches me all up and takes off. And I was just like, thanks a lot, asshole. You know, like, I don't expect you to protect me, but I expect you to stay here with me. You know, and I'm like trying to wake up my mom. Mom. And of course, typical, just like in every movie, they don't hear you. She doesn't wake up, you know. So it's coming closer and closer and closer. And the more I look at it, the more it looks kind of like the darkness in between the stars. Kind of like those patches of purple and blue. You know what I'm saying? And it comes closer, closer, and it starts to envelope my feet. It comes closer up to my chest, and at this point I'm so panicked I can't move, I can't think, I can't scream, I can't talk, I can barely blink. And I'm just kind of like, I just gotta accept my fate. I just gotta accept my fate, you know? And it comes up to my head, and I just fall asleep. And I wake up like nothing, you know? There was instances after that where me and my ex at the time were sitting in in my parents' living room, and we used to give him a ride to school. So the front door was open, and some light was peering in. It was, you know, dawn, so some light was coming in, kind of a pinkish yellow light. And I remember him sitting across from me on the couches that were across from me. And there was an exact replica of his figure almost sitting right next to him, moving like if it was on speed, you know? And I remember telling him, oh my God, there is a black shadow right next to you. And he was just like, what? Ha! And he starts laughing like, what are you talking about, stupid? And I remember it reaching over and touching his knee, and right at that moment he scratches his knee. And it's like, it's just kind of like changing positions, like it's crossing its leg, and it's standing up, and it's sitting down, and it's like if somebody put somebody in fast forward motion, like if it was on crack, you know, and it's just like getting up, and I'm just kind of like, hold on, wait a minute, let me go open the door so that maybe you can see better, because I can see it perfectly from here. And as soon as I do that, it gets up, and it runs into the corner of the wall. And I'm just kind of like, how the fuck did you not just see that? It was right next to you. And he's just like, I don't fucking know, I didn't see it, you know? That moment was funny. That moment it cracked me up. Anyway, so back to the spiral notebook. God, I'm already at 23 minutes. This is going to be like an hour-long video. Back to the spiral notebook. Okay. I'm cleaning my room, you know, it's towards the end of high school, and we're still having all these things going on. We see white mists, we see black shadows, we hear voices, we hear growls, people knocking at the back window, people knocking at the back door, jiggling the doorknob, TV turning on and off, lights flickering, classic haunting stuff, you know? And so I look at that notebook, and I'm just kind of scrolling, and lo and behold, now, before I say this, I believe that if a person even writes something like, you know, Hello Kitty, I love unicorns, and puts it in a notebook, but has bad intentions when they write it and give it to you, that may as well be a symbol of harm. Okay? Regardless. Now, he drew the Baphomet head with all the little symbols and the circle and put it in my spiral. I'm not afraid of that symbol. Well, not anymore. I'm not afraid of that symbol. But he drew it knowing good and well that it would instill fear in me. And I don't know why he felt the need to pick on me. I don't know why he felt the need to draw that symbol in my notebook. But this is where a lot of the stuff was stemming from. It was like a little doorway, you know, like a little portal. Because as soon as I ripped it out and crumbled it up, whether it was psychosomatic or what, I threw it away, and it went to practically nothing happening in the house. And I didn't tell my mom anything. My mom is the one that noticed on her own. She goes, you notice how it kind of feels better in here? She's like, my prayer is working. And I'm like, okay, if you say so, Mom. And my poor mom. Anyway, and I remember thinking, no, it was because I threw that paper away, you know. This was meant to directly affect me, not directly affect the people around me, but it ended up affecting the people around me. So everything cleared up right then after high school. Then, of course, a lot of this is intriguing to me. So I still go and hang out at cemeteries. I still go and pursue the darkety dark stuff, you know, because instead of it scaring me into submission back into the church, it raised an eyebrow. I was like, well, why is that happening? Why is it doing that? You know? And I'm still that way. So anyway, after high school, there was a period of a few years where nothing really happened until I met my ex-husband, and he lived in an apartment rather, him and his parents, that was deeply affected, really affected. And it was a part of town. It was next to some apartments that, you know, they had drug users, drug dealers, prostitution, you know, and stuff like that. So, I mean, there could have been a negative energy affecting that area, but we actually found out what really happened. There was a murder-suicide in that apartment, and the manager was forced, basically we forced her to tell us, why are these things happening in here? You know? And if anybody knows him, knows me, and sees this, it doesn't matter. I'm not trying to say it to sound offensive or to put anybody on the spot or nothing like that. But it's just part of my paranormal experiences, so I'm gonna say it. I'm sorry, you know. Okay, so, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4 people inhabit that house, that apartment. It's a 2-story, and actually 5, 4 to 5, just depending. And I remember him telling me that him and his ex-girlfriend were hanging out there, and I think they got into an argument, and and he was upstairs. No, I think they were just talking. He was upstairs and she was downstairs, and she was sitting on this chair, this really comfortable recliner, and it sat in front of a TV, you know? And she remembers feeling a presence behind her in the chair. And I think she starts talking to it, thinking that it's him. And then lo and behold, you know, your typical story where she notices that it's not him and she darts out the front door. And they both do, I think. Anyway, so I'm just going to say this real quick. I think that all the activity in that apartment was amplified when he got angry. That's just my opinion. That's what I think happened, because they do. They feed off of anger and they feed off of fear, which both were very prevalent in that apartment. So, anyway, we notice, oops, up the stairs all the time, up and down the stairs, boom, 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 heavy boots, boom, 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 broad daylight, you know, and sometimes at night, but broad daylight, boom, 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 boom. And she's like, fuck, man, that's fucking creepy. There was one time where we were taking a nap, And at the foot of the, I heard it at the foot of the, I heard it outside. He heard it at the foot of the bed. This little girl's ear-piercing scream, like if somebody was killing her. Right when we were falling asleep, and at the foot of the bed, we both just nearly pissed ourselves, you know? Like, what was that? And in the apartment, there was this almost stillness, like a lack of life, you know? Like, there wasn't any movement in the air, you know? And that's the same way that it was in my room at my mom's house during high school. Just stillness. And, so that was one instance. And then, there was, doors would open and close by themselves. And, okay, this is getting very specific, and I hope that I don't piss anybody off by saying this, but I gotta say it because it's relevant to the story. His niece was staying there, and she would sleep outside the bedrooms, outside, you know, within the bedroom vicinity, and things would happen around the apartment, and she would blame a spirit. We didn't know it was a spirit, but she would blame somebody called Nini. You know, she was so cute when she would say it too. Her little nostrils would flare, and she'd be like, "It was Nini." Oh my gosh, she's so adorable. Anyway, and we were like, you know, stop blaming it on Nini, you know, admit when you did something, you know. And she was like, "No, I swear, it wasn't me, it was Nini." You know, and Nini says this, and Nini says that. And we're just kind of like, we weren't so close-minded as to rule out the fact that it could have been something otherworldly, you know, so that made us even more scared, because how do you control something that you can't control, you know? And so she started sleeping with him in his bed, which was very comforting to me, because I didn't want her sleeping by herself either, you know? Why did my phone just light up? Okay. Anyway, so, she said that there was an instance when she was sleeping by herself that she saw the devil come up the stairs, or don't quote me, but this is from what I remember. She said that she saw the devil come up the stairs, and that he said he wanted to eat me. Me specifically. I don't know if she was angry with me at the time and just making it up, or what, but she said, I think she said that he had red eyes and sharp teeth, and that he said that he wanted to eat me, specifically. And he didn't want to harm anybody else, just me specifically. And I was like, okay, I don't know what I did to upset you, but anyway, so I was like, all right, okay. There was one instance where me and him were arguing, and he left. And I remember being upset at the time because I was jealous because he kept something sentimental that made me jealous at the time, okay? And I remember going into his closet, wanting to go get it and destroy it, you know? And as I was doing so, he had already darted out the door, the front door. As I was doing so, I remember feeling this energy compaction is the best way to describe it. Like the energy in the air just got thick. And I was going through his closet trying to find it. And I remember I hear footsteps behind me, you know? And I'm just kind of like, fuck. At that point, I knew that whatever was acting up in the house favored him, because it seemed to really amplify when he was angry. Not when anybody else in the house was angry, when he was angry. So he had some kind of link to it, I think. And he seemed to be a very spiritual guy. Probably didn't even realize it. But he was very much into the occult. So he didn't do anything in regards to practice in the occult, but he had a very piqued interest. Anyway, so I was like, okay, I'm gonna slowly back away now. and I was like, I know what's right behind me. And so I mustered up enough courage to where I ran out of the room. I dropped what I was doing and I ran out of the room. And as I was doing so, the upstairs bathroom door shut. And this happened in a period of like 2 seconds. Upstairs bathroom door shut. And I was running down the stairs. There was footsteps chasing me down those stairs. And the dishwasher door slammed down and the dishes rattled. And the downstairs bathroom door opened. And the front door open by themselves, you know. And yeah, it was later that we found out there was a murder-suicide in there. So everything that was happening in there, it seems to be that it wasn't really repetitive. It was just like whenever he was angry, he would feed the energy and make it amplify, you know. That was fun. So anyway, that happened. And then after that, let me skip forward a few here. Let me see. And I have to skip through my years here. 25, 26, 27. I don't think anything really major happened. A friend of mine at the time, we used to go ghost hunting like every weekend, and really the most I would experience is whatever we heard on the audio. But she had things happening in her house where her children were reporting that there was a tall man after them. And this, you know, friend of mine at the time, she's beautiful. She's tall, blonde, you know, and where we live, we're predominantly Mexican, you know, so I joked with her and telling her, like, look, dude, you are, like, so beautiful that they not only chase you in life, but they chase you in death, too. And they would call her name. They had on audio, they would call her name. They would interact with her. And so much so, I think, to where they probably followed her home. And to where her children were experiencing things. I think, I'm assuming maybe she got rid of the problem by now, but we stopped going, but we were going, like, every weekend. You know, it was really cool because she was the only other person at the time that was just as interested in it as I was. There was another group that we had of friends, but our schedules always clashed, you know. So, but there was several ghost hunting groups where I'm from the valley. There were several ghost hunting groups. This was at the prime when Ghost Adventures and Ghost Hunters had just come out, and everybody wanted a group. You know, now they've kind of dwindled. I mean, I would still go. I would like to still go. I just have to find the time to do it and, like, create a schedule to do it. You know, and also, they got really strict. We used to go to the cemetery because that's where we would get the most results. But now they're really strict and they close the cemetery at certain hours, you know, and stuff like that. And it's very hard to get invited to somebody's house, you know. And then when you're at somebody's house, you don't know if they're telling you just because they want the attention, which we had a couple of instances where somebody was telling us just because they wanted the attention. I think because they wanted to hit on her. Yeah, it's hard. It's difficult, you know. So, man, this thing is really bothering me in the video. It doesn't hurt or anything like that, but I bit off lip skin. So, anyway. So, I told you this was going to be a long video. It's 38 minutes. So, from there, a couple of years go by, I start to kind of question things. I start to kind of question life, and it's what led me where I am now. I start to basically renounce my Judeo-Christian upbringing, and I start to delve into, what am I? What do I believe? You know, what am I about? Based on all the things that I've experienced in my life, which I have a 38-minute long video talking about. What is this about? Oh, I forgot to mention. Oh, there was one more instance. Okay, I was 25, 26. There was a little boy that looked kind of like DJ from Roseanne that used to wait for me leaning against my mom's car. He had the little bowl haircut, brown hair, straight, light complected, looked exactly like DJ from Roseanne, had a striped shirt, blue jeans, and he was carrying books, and he had no feet, And he was always like looking at his watch, like, come on, man, we're in a hurry. Like he was waiting for me to take him to school. Anyway, I left that part out. So yeah, I start delving into, you know, paganism and stuff like that. And I remember telling myself, I'm not going to get into witchcraft. I'm not going to get into witchcraft because I'm so scared of it. I'm so scared of it. I'm so scared of it. And lo and behold, it's like the most fun thing ever. And, I remember telling myself, I'm not going to get into the darky dark stuff. I'm not. Look at me. I have dedicated myself to probably one of the darkest spirits, or some people call her a goddess, but I think she's a spirit. One of the darkest spirits you could possibly dedicate yourself to. And no, I don't believe in the devil. You know, I just want to throw that out there. I don't believe in the Christian devil. There are things far worse out there. Anyway, so yeah, it's like, as I was doing so, I'm straying away from the story here. As I was doing so, the spirit that I started associating with, very motherly, very nurturing, very comforting. But I didn't listen to people when they told me, she's going to test you. Like with any faith, you're going to get tested. God tests you. You know, whatever religion you're into, you get tested. People always tell you, you know, God tests you, the devil tests you, you know, such and such spirits are going to test you, you know, and lo and behold, that's what happened. She tested me, and the reason I know it was her is because there were specific signs that it was her. She knew that I was very, 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 very fearful. I feared death. I feared life. I feared, you know, certain animals, certain scenarios, certain situations. And she put every single one of them in front of me as kind of like exposure therapy, you know? And I can honestly say that I'm not as afraid anymore. She's reduced my fear about 75%. But some of that exposure was what you would call paranormal activity. I would wake up in the middle of the night and I would see shadows of dogs, black dogs, standing in the hallway. And they'd be growling at me. And they had glowing eyes. Kind of like a whitish color. I left one out. I left out my sleep paralysis. I'll tell you that one in a minute. And she would send these shadowy owl figures perch next to me on my bed. I could literally see them with my eyes. Shadow owl figures. If I wanted to reach out and touch them, I probably could. Things were moving around in the house, at the house that I was staying at the time. And it already had some history to it, but it's like, and it was during, you know, Halloween time, so things were probably going to be more active regardless. And I would have nightmares, oh my god. But she sent me this dream of this boy telling me to get out of the situation I was in. And as I was having the dream, I was laying down. I had the covers over me like this, right? A hand came out of under the covers and grabbed me by the arm and pulled me into like the sleep world. And he was like, come with me. But he was very nurturing, very comforting. He was solid blue. And I felt like I knew him before. And it ends up, I do know him from before. And so she was just sending me all kinds of tests and all kinds of symbols. Like, I have run into more snakes in my last 2 years than I have ever run into in my entire life. And that's because I got chased by a coral snake and by a rattlesnake as a kid. And, which by the way are very venomous, just letting you know. And, so I just sent all kinds of tests. And then I remember talking to her, and this is considered a paranormal experience. I remember talking to her. I was sitting in my car at Target, and I was like, you know, if you're really real, if you really want to get a hold of me, give me something physical, you know? Nothing. Because me, like most people, they want immediate gratification. God forbid you have patience, right? So I'm getting out of the car, and I'm like, I knew it. I knew you weren't real. Blah. And I remember feeling, right as I'm getting ready to get out of the car, I feel this warmth of, like, this euphoria. Mental euphoria, physical warmth, like if somebody's hugging me. You know? Like if all around me is one huge ball of energy hugging me. And I still remember that feeling, and I remember thinking, this is awesome. And I was like, all right. But I'm still not convinced. My dumbass, still not convinced. I was like, I tell you what, I'm going to go into Target, I'm going to close my eyes, and if you're really real and you really want me, if you really want to adopt me, you know, like if I'm some big prize or something, and I was like, you'll point me in the direction of something that's associated with you. So I just felt kind of like this string pulling me, and I end up in the candle section, and I'm looking straight at a wolf wax burner, which she's very much has the association with dogs. So anyway, paranormal stuff. Okay, in my apartment, I remember leaving offerings, but I wasn't specific as to who they were for. So I started seeing these black figures all on the walls, and it scared the living shit out of me because I wasn't prepared to see it. Like, I was still getting over my fears, and I still am getting over my fears. And it looked kind of like a lava lamp on the wall. Like, just morphing like this, like black silhouettes going. If I wasn't scared of it, it would have been hypnotic. And things were moving around the apartment, and I heard shuffling, like, you know, or little footsteps, little walking, scurrying right by me, and I was like, holy fucking shit, because it's just me and my son, and like the protector took hold, but also the scared person was lingering in the background, like, I don't know what the fuck to do, but I gotta do something, you know? And I remember telling my boyfriend, before he was officially my boyfriend at the time, I was like, what do I do? And he was like, you weren't specific as to who you were leaving your offerings to, were you? And I was like, no. And he's like, you need to specify, throw those offerings away, and if you're going to leave out any more, I think that's what he said, then specify who it's for. And so I did that the next day, and there was nothing there. So I was like, oh, okay. So, there have been a couple of instances recently where I saw a dark figure that looked like a goat with glowing red eyes standing over him in his bed, like his side of the bed. I heard a loud deer call. And it is the most weird sounding thing you've ever heard in your life. Little things here and there. Nothing really big. Two more things, then I'm done, okay? Then I'm done. But, let me warn you though that this happened during meditation, so I wasn't straight. I wasn't in a normal mental state. I could go on a whole other video about meditation. But I like to stay awake enough to where I can write things down that I'm seeing, you know? I mean, that's not actual meditation, but it's kind of more of like an automatic writing / meditation. More like a mediumship kind of. And this was probably only like a couple weeks ago. Man, it is really hot in here. It's probably like a couple weeks ago. I was sitting on the couch, and It got really quiet. And I was writing stuff down. And I was like, come on, Hecate, show yourself to me. Hecate, show yourself to me. Please, please, please. I'm so desperate, please. And not even a few minutes after that. Now, I don't think it was her. No, not a few minutes. Because she likes to kind of stay in the sidelines unless you absolutely 100% need her. She doesn't like coming to you when you're just crying mommy because you're lonely. You know, she's very strict like that. Anyway, and so it was kind of like I could feel it happening. It was behind me on the couch, and it started on the ground, and it was mustering up like a cloud, forming and forming and forming like a misty, dark, thick cloud. And it got to about, ooh, I'm getting chills. It piled up to about 6 feet high, standing behind me. It's creeping me out just thinking about it. 6 feet high, standing behind me. And in my mind, I didn't actually... I turned and gazed and saw like darkness, but I more so saw it in my brain, a hooded figure, and it was just empty. There was no emotion, there was no gender, there was no body, there was just void. It was completely empty. It was just, it wasn't even darkness, it was just void, is what it was. But I could feel it staring at the back of my head. Like I could feel its eyes like piercing the back of my head. And I remember sitting there like this, I was like, oh, you know, like, oh my God, it's behind me. And I was so scared that I started giggling. Because I was like, I asked for this, you know, I'm the one that asked for, you know, for her to show up. But I am almost positive looking back now that it wasn't her. And I did like, you know, I did a reading and she said that it wasn't her. So I was just kind of like, I see you, buddy. You know, like, I see you there. And then it just was kind of like, and it just kind of shriveled and just kind of dissipated. I was like, hooded figure standing behind me. Didn't know who it was. Was really awesome. And for the most part, I think that's pretty much the most it's gone down so far. One more. And I'm almost at an hour. Okay. I was about 25 years old. We were, my parents were renovating their house because we had a really bad mold problem. So we stayed for about 6 months in a Holiday Inn Express. At the time, I was going to a technical college, and I remember coming back from one of my classes, and I just wanted to take a nap. You know, it was before I had my son, so I had all day to do whatever the hell I wanted to do. Kind of like now. And I'm laying on the bed, and it was kind of like the exorcism of Emily Rose, okay? I feel, I'm not quite asleep, right? But I feel pressure shifting on the bed, and it's moving the bed from my feet all the way up to my shoulders. Like a big dog, okay? And in my mind, and somewhat in my line of vision, I saw a big gray dog. Like stone. Okay, it was like stone. And I was just kind of like, this was my first bout of sleep paralysis. And I was just like, you know, and I couldn't believe what was happening. This was it. I was like, this scary shit's supposed to happen in the middle of the night, not broad daylight, blah. You know, so what was happening was, as it was crawling on me, it laid on me with its head like this, looking down at my face, like, just like a trickster, you know? Like, I'm not here to harm you. I'm just here to kind of sit and make fun of you. And pick on you, you know? And I remember it had a like your typical gargoyle. A stone dog looking face. It kind of looked like a Great Dane. Kind of like Scooby. And it had serpentine eyes. It had yellow eyes. Oh, did you see that? Look, look, look. They're listening. Did you see it? They're listening. And it had serpentine eyes with like the black slit. Y'all are listening? Those always appear in my videos. Look, now it's getting... Now the video is getting fuzzy. You see it? Anyway, oh, I'm getting sweaty. It's hot in here. And so he's laying on me like this, and I remember strings attached to the back of my head. It was like webs were attached to the back of my head, and they kept pulling me into sleep. Does that make sense? They were pulling me into the dream world, like, go back to sleep. We don't want you to wake up. Go back to sleep. And I was like, no! And I kept trying to pull forward. And I couldn't scream, and I couldn't yell, and I couldn't do anything because it's sleep paralysis. You can't do any of that stuff, you know? And I started reciting the Lord's Prayer because it's all I knew how to do. And I was like, in the name of Jesus Christ, I command you to let me go. In the name of Jesus Christ, I command you to let me go. You know, and I had enough faith, you know, I guess, of my own empowerment, I'm assuming, it was just kind of like, oh, whatever, you know, and it backed off. You could feel the bed shifting, and it was walking away. And, damn, I'm almost at an hour, I can't believe that. And I was just like, like I got a breath of fresh air, and I was like, oh my God, what the fuck just happened, you know? So, but everybody that experiences sleep paralysis experienced something similar to that. But the funny thing is it was a gargoyle dog, you know, and with like snake eyes, and the people that I've talked to, they're like, oh yeah, that's like a demon dog, you know, like a hellhound. I was like, what the hell would a hellhound want with me? And they're like, oh, they just want to mess with you, you know, like a lot of people think that some spirits, that they're either all good or all bad, but they're not. They're the spectrum in between, just like we are, you know, and some of them, you know, they just want to mess with you. I mean, they thrive off of just messing with you, you know. They like to see you scared. Or they like to just mess with you like an older sibling does to a younger sibling, like, it's fun. And they just think that it's fun, you know. What's going to stop them, really, you know? Hey, if I were in that situation, I'd probably do it too. Anyway, thank God the aircon's turning on. But anyway, that's about it as far as the experiences that I've had. To be continued. But anyway, so I mean, as of now, if I experience something minor, you know, like something shifted in the house, I'll get a little jumpy, you know, but I'll dismiss it, you know, like a few minutes later, you know. If it's something bigger, something physical in your face, I'm going to be a little jittered for, you know, 24 hours or so, but I know as well as anything else that they reside in the same world as us, you know, they reside in a similar world as us. They can go and come as they please, you know. And a lot of times they're not there to hurt us. They're just kind of like, it's like you're in a crowded mall, you know, and that's kind of how it is. So, anyway. Alright, well, until next time, I hope you didn't feel like this was a complete waste of an hour of your time. And if you want to leave any comments, by all means, go ahead. And we'll see you in the next video.